This episode contains open and honest discussions about suicide, depression, and mental health struggles. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. If you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out for help. You are not alone. In the U.S., you can contact the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988 for free 24/7 support.
Hi, welcome to the Iron Shopping Iron Show. I'm your man, Big Jack. This is where we prove we are stronger together, that if each one would reach one, we can all grow and glow. And today is another beautiful day. I mean, we got a wonderful show. I'm still on cloud nine because of all the things we have accomplished in the last week. I mean, it's been a year, but just like they all hit us at one time in this week. So I'm super, super excited. And I don't, and I want to sing right now. That's how excited I am. I'm so excited. I just can't hide it. But so I don't even want to hold up anything. I'm gonna just go ahead and kick this thing off and get my man on stage so we can roll. So bear with me while I get my man on the stage. So hold up one second. Here we go for the Iron Shopping Iron Show. All right, my man Walt, what's up?
Big Jack, my man, what's happening? How you doing, sir?
Oh man, look. Hey, I'm gonna take it from you before you even get a chance.
No, you're not even, man. You got a fresh haircut, man. So fresh and so clean.
Oh,
First
man,
day of school, baby. The cravat is the number 3 on the hair chart, man. I'm looking.
Come on now. Like, check it out. The thing was, man, we didn't hit some huge milestones. So we got 600 videos out. We got 200,000 views, 3,000 watch hours. I mean, we hit a new show, got a new member on the team. And I was like, man, I got to get a fresh cut because we just moved up to another level. I got to get a fresh cut. So I got a cut.
Man, I'm proud of all of those accolades. Man, I'm impressed. I mean, because I remember when, but I would be remiss if I didn't say, Jack, I think you're changing, man.
Nah, bro, I changed not. The only thing is changing, though. I'm gonna throw this out there for anyone who's watching, and hopefully they come in. They'll see them in the chat and all. But we have added to the Iron Shopping Iron, and it's the Iron Shopping Iron universe.
Yes,
and that was something that was inspiration on me and put on my heart. Is because we're bigger than This is a mission. This is not a show. This is a movement. And the universe is ours in that sense of putting new things out there that's going to reach more and more people. So it's the Iron Shopping Iron universe, and you'll start seeing the logo soon. And that's where we're going, man. That's where we're going for sure.
Hey, man, I'm proud of you, man. Again, man, I'm glad to be able to say that I was here, not from the very, very beginning, like Miss Nancy Green, but I was here. And let me say, man, you have changed, but in a good way. And when I say changed, I mean just the maturation of the Iron Sharpening Iron show and the whole Big Jack and StoryTime in the Iron Sharpening Iron universe. Mm-hmm. Hey, man, you growing, man. And I'm gonna tell you, I don't even see any growing pains, man. This thing has been, it's a labor of love for you. You and B, and now I'm along for the ride as far as the behind the scenes stuff goes. But I got to tell you, man, I'm impressed. So I know I give you the business, man, but I salute you for that because I know you put that work in, man. I respect your hustle. I respect your grind. And I certainly respect that new haircut, man.
Go ahead, man. Hey, look, man, I appreciate it coming from you. That means a lot to me. But look, check it out. We already know we're on a different platform today.
Yes.
Because we got a very special guest, and because he's so special that we had to change up our platform. So for those out there trying to figure out what's going on right now, I just want to let everybody know we had to use Zoom. So we had to use Zoom for this show right here. So this is the first time we've tried it through Zoom. So if we hits the wrong buttons or whatever, bear with us because it's a new platform for us. But for this guest, it was worth it. And I'm looking forward to meeting him and having this discussion with him. So, hey, let's not waste any more time. Let's get him up on the stage. Are you ready?
Let's get it busy, man. Let's go.
Let's go. All right, welcome to the show, Zach Tidwell. This is the Iron Sharpening Iron Show. I'm your man, Big Jack, and I got Walt Talks up here. We are now live on YouTube, we're live on Facebook, and live on Twitch. And then we'll cut this show up and we'll put it on, what is the Instagram and TikTok. So again, welcome and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Zach, if you can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
I can. My name is Zach Tidwell, as you already said. I'm a 29-year-old Marine Corps veteran, and I lost all of my sight and hearing in one ear 6.5 years ago when I shot myself in the face. I had reached a point where I didn't want to be here anymore, and I'm not a combat vet. I just ended up in a bad spot through some personal circumstances and a traumatic brain injury that sent me spiraling, and I chose to seek relief at the bottom of a bottle instead of through talking about it. And that cost me my sight, as I said. But I had to relearn how to do everything. Today, I'm a self-taught, award-winning software developer, making the digital world a more accessible place for everyone. I'm a speaker and a writer with a book on the way, hopefully hitting the markets, I guess, online here in the next 6 months to a year. And I do a lot of work in the mental health space, trying to keep other people from going down the same path that I did. And I ski, rock climb, whitewater kayak, and compete in Brazilian jiu-jitsu against people without any disabilities and all sorts of other cool stuff. Like, I've really ended up with a really cool life after. Obviously, there was some ugliness there for a while, but I'm in a good spot now. So.
Wow. I mean, just
Wow.
the introduction alone is like, wow. So I'm feeling I guess guilty that I'm not even doing half the things you're doing. So what was
Absolutely.
the I guess the turning point? Like you said, you was going through a rough time. Was that while you were in the service, or did you had already got out the service? When was that time that you said you was at the low, if that's the case?
Yeah, it was a downward spiral. So there was kind of a timeline there. In late 2017, I was on my second deployment and found out that my wife was cheating on me. This was my high school sweetheart, and I found out from the other guy's wife. I didn't even find out from her. So that was fun. And I came back right at the end of 2017 and tried to make things work with her, and it didn't. So I filed for divorce, and then shortly after that, I was in a motorcycle accident that left me with that traumatic brain injury that I talked about earlier. And up until that point, I'd been dealing with it. You know, I was not in a good spot, but I wasn't in a bad spot either. It was the normal pain you'd expect of losing your marriage to infidelity like that. But one of the things that I was doing to keep myself very busy, I guess it was really the gym, a lot of running, and obviously life in the Marine Corps infantry is already pretty demanding, but I was also taking my dirt bike to the racetrack. And after that wreck, that's the first time in my life that I ever started struggling with depression. All of a sudden, I couldn't escape my thoughts. I was just racking my brain kind of on everything that I might have done wrong, or where I could have done things better, or what went so wrong in my marriage that happened. And so that was March of 2018. I was honorably discharged in August of 2018. And like throughout that time, it was basically instantly after the motorcycle accident, I'd become very agitated and impulsive on top of dealing with the depression. And because I couldn't sleep, I found that getting a little buzz before I went to bed would help me fall asleep. And so a drink or two before bed just kind of progressed over that timeline. And I came home, started going to college and pursuing a nursing degree while I worked at a local hospital, and kind of got my foot in the door because I wanted to be an ER nurse, which was a total shift from I was a machine gunner in the Marines. But I kept slipping into a worse and worse place, and I kept putting more and more effort into keeping up appearances that I wasn't. So that continued all the way through March of 2019, when, again, by all outward measures, I was doing well. I was getting straight A's in school. I was doing well at this new job, and I was on track to become a nurse. And by the time that March 27th rolled around, I decided that I didn't want to be here anymore. And that's the first night, I guess the first time in my life that I've ever mishandled a firearm. But I cleared out my concealed carry firearm and held it to my head and decided that was my way out. And on March 31st, I went through with it.
Wow, man. So now it's just hard to even go. It's amazing that you're here.
Yes.
To ask you the question. So, what was the recovery? How did that go? So you already pulled the trigger. You said you mishandled your firearm for the first time, so you didn't. I know we were trained to, one shot, one kill, shoot to kill, center mass, all those things. But here you're still alive. So what was that like for you?
Yeah, and I actually shot myself exactly where we're trained to shoot. I shot myself in between the eyes. So if you can see where my nose is kind of crooked, and I guess my eyes do open. Obviously, this one doesn't open all the way, but the bridge of my nose, the lower part of my forehead here, and my right eye socket and my sinuses are all titanium. So my optic nerves are completely screwed, and that's why I have no light perception whatsoever. But when they took me off of life support, it was very touch and go. They didn't know at first if I was going to survive, then they didn't know if I was going to still be in there at all. And if I was, to what extent, if that meant that I was going to receive care or require care for the rest of my life. And I was so out of it, I think probably from a combination of the brain injury of shooting yourself in the face, but also all the medications that I'd been on, that I didn't even understand that I was blind when they brought me off of life support. Because I could have a conversation like we're having right now, but I was seeing, like, I distinctly remember the first time that they took me out of my room and I was able to walk, which was, some time down the progression. To me, it looked like I was on the surface of the moon. And at the same time, I could feel the cold, just flat tiles through my little grippy hospital socks on the floor. Like I was, and by that point, I knew that I was blind, and I knew that the things that I was seeing weren't actually things that I was seeing. It was just hallucinations, but it was so vivid. But it was touch and go also from the perspective that they told me I was going to get sight back in my left eye. As I said, like basically the right side seemed to catch all the damage for the most part. So my right optic nerve is severed, but my left one is still intact. And they thought that there was just bone pressing on my optic nerve on the left side, and that when I had my facial reconstruction, that it would alleviate some of that. But a month in, or however long it was into me being in the hospital, because I was still in the ICU, and the doctors would come through every morning and do their rounds and be like, "What's your name? Do you know what day it is? Do you know why you're here?" And then we'd go through them kind of talking to each other and comparing notes and stuff. And one of the doctors came in and did her rounds, and she just dropped it on us with zero warning that I was not going to be getting any sight back. It was just me at the hospital. My mom's friend was there and my parents weren't there. She's just like, "Yeah, blah, blah, blah. You're going to be totally blind." And we were kind of like, "What? Like, what'd you just say?" And she's like, "Yeah, it says here you're going to be totally blind." And thankfully, I had already kind of leaned into learning whatever I could. So that hospital didn't know how to deal with a blind man in any way, shape, or form. And they had actually given me a Swiffer mop handle with a tennis ball on the end of it instead of a cane or anything like that, because they didn't know what to do. So not that I could get around by myself. Like at first I couldn't even sit up in bed. Like it was that bad. But as that day when my parents did get to the hospital, and we kind of started having a discussion on what life might look like. And of course, we had no idea. None of us had ever been around a blind person until we were, I was the first blind person that I ever met. So we had no idea what my life might look like, but my mom had thrown out the idea that I could get a guide dog because I've always loved dogs. My dad threw out the idea that maybe I couldn't be a nurse, but I could be a therapist and use this to help other people. And I think I was still probably pretty concussed because my mind went to the one experience that I have ever had with a blind person before. And that was the the salt and pepper shakers in the chow halls on my little area on Camp Pendleton in little fine print said made proudly by the blind and visually impaired. And so my response to my dad was, I'm not making effing salt and pepper shakers. He's like, it's like, what the hell are you talking about, dude? So I had to explain myself, but it totally, and it's silly and it's a funny little anecdote, but I leaned into learning everything that I could, and it wound up being the case that 8.5 months after I shot myself, I was snowboarding again. That was before I could cook for myself or anything. I was living at home with my parents. They were doing everything for me, and I had just like the very basic blind guy skills, and I was trying to learn them. But I was snowboarding again, and that was one of my favorite things to do when I could see. And that was my first taste of independence. And I just kept chasing it. And a month after that, I was back in college and I was pursuing a clinical psychology degree. And then 6 months after that, I was back out on my own. And when I was in the hospital and we had that conversation, I mean, the plan was I would live with my parents forever. Like that was what we thought I was going to have to do, was it would be with my parents or a nursing home. And in less than a year and a half, I was back out on my own, and like things were just things were just going, and they were really good for a while. And I guess kind of pause there because that was kind of the first little rising point out of all of that.
Wow. I mean, I'm intrigued because my father, he's deceased now, but he had diabetes, and it ended up taking his sight. And listening to you talk about, being able to not really see it, but you felt it almost like it was there. And I remember being at baseball games with him, and he even tried to bowl and things that he could do, even going fishing and all kinds of things because he could remember what it was like before he lost his sight. So he remember, you just tell me where to put me in the spot. Your left foot is on the center dot. He said, okay, I know what to do. And he can roll the ball down the lane because he remembered that. So was it like that for you as far as snowboarding and other things because you just remembered what it was like? So that's how you was able to overcome that or maneuver through?
I wish it was. I was god awful. It's not. I was good at it when I could see. I was really good at it, but I could not figure it out blind. And I think some of that's so. I was so early on to it, and doing anything like being out around any sort of noise or like having to use my brain really at that point was exhausting. And I guess I was pretty discombobulated. So I couldn't make it off the bunny hill, and I was just falling. I was smacking my head, and I was nervous that I was going to knock something loose because they just screwed my face back together. But I actually, these days, I ski and ski bike, and I've never gone back to snowboarding specifically because it just, I tried over the course of that first year, maybe year and a half, to snowboard more and more. But once I got on skis and on a ski bike, it just, I could do that stuff completely fine. And for whatever reason on snowboard, I get vertigo and kind of lose sense of direction. So I think now I could probably do it, but at that point, no, like nothing picked right back up where I left off. But it was the fact that was an option, and I wasn't stuck on the couch. I mean, my days at that point were pretty much doctor's appointments, or because I was living at home with my parents, it was doctor's appointments, working out in my dad's gym, or laying around listening to audiobooks and podcasts outside of, if I tried practicing cooking and had a parent watching or something like that, like that was, it was not a pretty time for me in terms of having any sort of quality of life. So it was just had that spark of having something. But was your dad totally blind?
He ended up being, yes. So he
Okay.
ended up being totally blind. So I remember we went to a baseball game, and I would sit there and give him the play-by-play. And he would sit there, and it's almost as he was sitting there watching the game, or I would just tell him he just pitched the ball, he hit the ball to third, and he knew the game enough to follow along, to the point that we had a couple of fans sitting next to us that gave him their phone. It's like, excuse me, sir, can you take a picture of us? And we just like laughing because I'm like, he explained to him that he was blind, but I was like, you should have tried to
Just
take
gone
that
with
picture.
it.
Yeah, I'd have
Yeah.
loved to see what you got. So, but it was just they couldn't tell because he just was going on with life, and he didn't, he did lose his sight, and yeah, you lose, but he didn't give up. And I'm listening to you talking. It's almost like you didn't give up, and we're going to get more into your story for sure. But I'm curious because now I was an MP when I was in the military, so I was a military police, and we know it's against the law to commit suicide. It's against the law. And I've never talked to anyone who attempted it and didn't succeed. So I'm just curious right now, how did the legal side of this react to you because of what you did? I know you went to the hospital, but did anybody come after you in any kind of way because of what you had done to yourself?
No,
Okay.
there was nothing. They actually, because my roommate is the one who found me. So when I came home from the Marines, my parents gave me the deal of, hey, if you're going to school and taking care of business, you have a free place to stay. They actually my confrontationalness that really an agitation that came after the motorcycle accident, combined with the drinking, became such an issue that they had kicked me out of the house about a month before I shot myself, rightfully so. And I got an apartment with a buddy that I'd gone to high school with. He's the one who found me. And they investigated him for, seeing if it was an
Mm,
attempted murder at
Mm.
first.
Wow.
And I don't know. I'm guessing on the legal side, if I've never heard of someone who attempted suicide being charged with something.
charged.
And it probably, I don't even know if I knew that that was illegal until you just said that. And I would imagine if you're a police officer and you're like, well, this turd's now blind and deaf in one ear and having to relearn how to do everything. I think that's enough of a, he paid enough of a price, regardless on how he personally feels about suicide. But
Right.
yeah,
No, I know, and I was more just trying to see if anybody, 'cause like I say, even saying your roommate got involved, and even sometimes even the parents, because we look at it in different ways of not so much your parents involved, but it's like, did you consider your parents and who's going to miss you, or was it just all internal? Like I'm only worried about me at this time and not anyone else.
it's my worldview was so narrow that there was nothing except I wanted an escape. And I try and really paint this picture when I have an opportunity to talk about this stuff, whether it's me actually giving a speech or doing something like this. And when someone is, like you're asking very deep questions that a lot of people just won't ask, people just tiptoe around it. So it's nice that you're actually getting into it. I'm a firm believer that by the time that you've reached the point where you don't want to be here anymore, you are no longer in a sane state of mind. And I say that because if you stop and think about any living thing on this earth, the all of our actions, whatever biological organism it is, comes down to first self-preservation and second spreading your genes.
That's
Killing
true.
yourself flies in the face of all that genetic program. I mean, this is encoded in your DNA. Like these are the behaviors and the instincts that you have. And for you to see, or I guess not be able to see and be so blinded by the pain that you're in, to think that that is the rational and only step out of where you're at, you're not in a sane state of mind. And I mean, that's why we put people on mental health holds when they're in that state
Right.
of mind. But personally, I had made on March 27th is when I had held my gun to my head and decided I was going to kill myself. On March 30th, my parents were at my house with my younger sisters. I acted like nothing was wrong. And then even on the 31st, I talked to my roommate minutes before I shot myself. He had actually gotten home. I was making a suicide video to my family because I thought that that would be more personal somehow than leaving a note. And that was me actually opening up about where I was at mentally. And, probably I've never listened to that video. I don't think that would serve any purpose for me. So I don't know exactly what was said, but I do know that I addressed both of my parents and the older of my two sisters. And my roommate came home and interrupted me recording that video before I addressed my youngest sister. And I went out and talked to him like nothing was wrong, and then went back in my room and shot myself. So there was at least the consideration of I want them to understand, but I don't remember ever having the thought of what will me being gone do to them, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense.
Yes.
It's deep. I'm gonna tell you this right now, and it's deep. So we've had different guests on the show who said they felt the way that you acted, and they wanted to do it, but they couldn't do it or didn't do it. And to hear someone say they actually pulled that trigger, and that's, it's amazing just to hear it. And I'm glad that I'm here talking to you about it and not talking about the story, meaning I'm actually could hear your side of it and hear what you had to say. Because, a lot of people go through a lot of things in their life, and a lot of people put themselves in that situation. And it's only by, sometimes they say the grace of God is by somebody's talking to them about this or that. But whatever it was, you had a lot left in your life. So you're here and we're talking to you. So, and it's one thing that I'm learning from one of our other shows is we talked a lot about the lemons you had in your life, but we want to hear about the lemonade now. So you took those lemons and turned it into lemonade. But I got one more question before we get into the lemonade.
All right, go
They
for
say
it.
when you lose a sense, so you lost your sight. They say the other ones kicked in a little bit stronger, but you lost part of your hearing. So it's like, did anything else trigger that you feel like, okay, now I have a much better this because of my loss of sight and some of my hearing? So the other senses kicked in any better because of that?
Yeah, so I am totally blind and have one ear left. So I'm three-quarters of the way to Helen Keller. And I also lost my sense of smell, and my sense of taste is dull as a result of that. And I have a bunch of nerve damage in my face. So what I do have left, I would say I don't know that my touch has gotten any more sensitive, but my good ear has gotten ridiculously sensitive. And I think I would say that took probably like 2 years for me to really start having any sense of direction with it and like honing in on things and starting to pick up. It's honestly, I think everyone has this. You just don't pay attention to it because when you see, you have so much other information coming in that obviously hearing is not your primary sense and you're not paying attention to all the information that you do get through your ears. But when I navigate with a cane or even through my house, I could walk through my house from, I'm upstairs in my office right now. I could walk all the way downstairs and probably all the way down to my basement without touching anything, just off of hearing, because even with the house silent, and if you go do this in your house, you might be able to notice it. Like you can feel it is like a sense of pressure in your ear where things open up or where they get closer to you, or if you walk past the doorway. And it's the same thing. I can be walking outside and I will hear that I walked past a light post. Of course, I wouldn't know if that's a light post or a tree trunk if I hadn't been by there before, but I will hear that I just passed that object and that it was not a very wide object, and that it was something, a post as opposed to a car or something like that. And I think that and my spatial awareness, like my ability to mentally map things out, has really, again, it took like 2 years before I started getting all of that, but your body is just, it's incredible what you can adapt to.
Mm,
It's pretty nuts.
wow. Yeah. I'm definitely. Walt, I see you up there. Go ahead, man. What you got?
Man, so I just got a couple things to unpack, and I know you're going to go to, but let's start with, man, thank you for your service, first of all.
Oh yeah.
Secondly, the one thing you did not lose is your sense of humor. And I'm sure that helps tremendously. And you talked about him asking questions, but having a conversation with you or listening to you, the two of you have a conversation, I never get the feeling like you don't feel like woe is me. Now, having said that, like you said, when you make a decision to do that or attempt that, you must have really been in a bad place, because there's nothing about you, the Marine, the outgoing person, that the average person, your friends mostly and family, not paying attention or just paying attention to who you are, clearly no one saw that, because if they did, they probably would have intervened, right? So I'm sure
Yeah.
people beat themselves up about that, and I'm sure you let them off the hook, so to speak, because I hear an accountability from you, that a personal accountability, a lot of people that haven't been through what you've been through won't even acknowledge about themselves. So as far as the census goes, Big Jack's father and I were good friends. He was like my big brother. And there was a time, man, I did not believe he was blind for the longest time, because he did have such keen senses, and he
Yeah.
did have a sense of humor, and he did like to give me the business so much. So I just really thought that he was punking me, so to speak. And it was just a weird place, man. But I gotta say, man, Zach, your story is tremendous. Like, so being in the Marine Corps, that's the upper percentile of the country right there. Being in the military is the upper percentile, and then the Marine Corps is, and I'm no offense, Big Jack, no disrespect to the Army,
Right
is
on.
But
probably
disrespect to the Army.
no. How about that? You know, when somebody says that, put the helmet on, you know what's coming next, right? But I'm just saying, man. So I'm sure that training, that preparation, the things that you learned, you probably pulled on all those things after your accident, after your intentional, unintentional accident. And then you're going through this, just if I got my timing right, you're going through this during COVID. So, am I correct? So, there's not a
Yeah.
lot of interaction with you as a patient during COVID, because if you're home, that's one thing, but in the hospital, like I just remember my mother being in the nursing home, and I visited her through a window for a year, man. She was quarantined. So did that affect you also? Were you caught up in that?
Yeah, I'll come back to I wasn't thankfully because I don't know
Okay.
what I would have done, because this was March of 2019, and that really started kicking off here, at least in Colorado where I'm at, like, end of
Okay.
2019, I guess, rolling into 2020. But
Okay.
the I get coming back to I think the accountability piece,
Mm-hmm.
and specifically, letting other people off the hook. I don't feel like anyone, I this is another thing I try and make a point to, because I think a lot of times, and this happened in my family too, even though I'm still here, they did really struggle with that. And they feeling that they missed something, and that where I wound up was their fault.
Mm.
I'm the only one responsible for, I chose everything. We always have choices. I chose to not speak up about where I was at. I chose to drink it away, and I am the one who chose to try and kill myself. No one else is responsible for my choices. And I think that's important to communicate, because that doesn't just apply to me. That applies to outside of, malicious inaction, from a
Mm-hmm.
bystander who knows that someone is struggling, that if you got left behind after a suicide, that is not your fault. You see so many struggle and even follow up with their own suicides because they can't get past something like that. And this misplaced, understandable but misplaced sense of guilt, or load that people have taken on afterwards, that it's not, it's unfortunate, but the only, again, the responsibility falls on the person who did kill themselves. And it's tough, but in any sort of mental health situation, or even addiction, which has been part of my story since as well,
Mm-hmm.
there's hordes and hordes of people in the world who want to help you, but like no one can help you until they know that you're struggling. And so like that first step has to come from that person wanting to help themselves. And that's this, it's a conundrum, because it is, how do you help someone who doesn't know that they need help? How do you know someone
Yeah,
who
right.
doesn't want the help, isn't ready for it, isn't willing to accept that they need it? Like it's tough. But so again, I just wanted to harp on that, because it does, I've seen
Yeah.
that effect in my own family. And I know that's not a one-off thing. That's very, very common. And people come up to me a lot and talk to me about that. But on the COVID side, had I been cooped up like that, where I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
have visitors, I don't know where I
Okay.
would have wound up, because even though my family and I had reached the point where they kicked me out of the house again, rightfully so. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, and they were at the point that the day before I shot myself, they had come to just see my new apartment. It's not like I was excommunicated from the family, but we also weren't on great terms. But they were there with me 24/7 there while I was on life support. And even when I was first, it was clear that I was stable and that I was actually comfortable being alone. Cause you know, that was even
Right.
being in the hospital and not being able to even sit up in bed, even after I was totally cognizant, was still, that was scary. I was totally, I couldn't do anything for myself and was now had lost most of, you know, my primary sensory inputs from the world. So like I had incredible support from my family and I don't know where I would have been without that. I've been very fortunate in that.
Wow.
Wow, that's incredible. Let me also ask you, if I may, uh, you mentioned your motorcycle accident, which kind of started this whole situation. And I'm a biker myself. So you said you were a dirt bike guy, or you a street bike guy?
I had a street bike prior to the dirt bike. The accident was on a dirt bike though, at a racetrack.
Okay. And then I think you mentioned Colorado. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's where I came back to after the Marines.
Okay, no, because I had the pleasure of going across country on a motorcycle, and that $1 million highway is incredible. Have you ever ridden that?
Uh-uh.
Oh my God, man, it's incredible. Yeah. So I just think about snowboarding. You said bunny slopes because when I'm thinking snowboarding, man, I'm thinking all kind of obstructions and everything. So your sense of humor, I just know the first time I tried to ski and the first time I tried to snowboard, and I can imagine you with your skill set trying to relearn it. I'm sure in your mind, and that's where all the fun starts, that you had one vision of it or one idea of how it was going to go, and it went the other way. But your sense of humor, man, your resilience, I'm impressed. And like Jack mentioned earlier, man, I just feel like I haven't done enough of my life at this point. I mean, I feel like I've just been slacking, man. And I live a pretty good life. I live a pretty cool life. But man, I'm just sitting and listening to your story. I'm looking forward to the book coming out, and I appreciate you sharing this part. And I'm sure you have, the lemonade is coming. But you're talking about this so matter of factly, man, and I know, the way you're talking about it now doesn't really fully represent what you actually went through and the struggle you went through. But I will say, I mean, something going on in your life, not you, but us. It's just like, okay, now what am I really upset about? What am I really mad for? How unappreciative am I? How much do I take for granted on a daily basis? On a daily basis. So thank you for that, because again, in the Big Jack show, the Iron Sharpening Iron show does this all the time. It's like, I learned so much. And just in this last 20, 30 minutes, man, that we've been talking, or you've been talking, I've been listening. It's just, I'm just like, wow. So I'm looking forward to just sharing this with my friends and push and play it, man. Like, come talk to me after you hear
watch
Zach
this, yeah.
Tidwell's story. Yeah, you watch this and then come talk to me and tell me if it still matters,
You
man.
watch this because he can't.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, cut it out, man. Cut
I
it
read
out.
between the lines. No, I'm just kidding. You'll have to get a sidecar and let me know if you come
Bada
back out here.
bang. Tip your waitresses, ladies.
It's all on.
Ladies and gentlemen,
So,
come on.
so Zach,
Zach,
I'm
you
gonna
killing
ask
me,
you.
man.
I'm gonna ask you this because you said you was going to school for nursing.
Yeah.
You was
Oh man.
infantry in the military. You ended up switching to, I think you said psychology.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
how did you end up being a software developer? Where did that come from?
Well, there are a lot more lemons in my story. So
All
that
right.
was I shot myself in March of 2019. I was back in college in January of 2020. That's when I was pursuing the clinical psychology degree with the long-term plan at that point, because I tried everywhere. I did everything I could to try and find proof of a blind nurse somewhere, and it's not a thing, which makes sense. But I exhausted all avenues before I decided to move on to a different major, because I really felt like I had found something that spoke to me. So started school in January of 2020, was back out on my own that summer. And by the next summer, the summer of 2021, my college stopped making my content accessible to me. So like, even, you know, you guys have made some adjustments here so that I could join the podcast, because the usual platform that you use isn't accessible. I use screen reading software where my phone and my computer can read textual information from the screen aloud to me, but certain steps have to have been taken in whatever I'm accessing for that to be possible. And up until that point, so from January 2020 up until the summer semester of 2021, my college was converting my lectures into formats that I could access. My textbooks were entirely different formats that they would convert, you know, an online textbook into a Word document. So I could, because I can access that, or my different assignments, and all of it was being converted into formats that worked with my screen reading software. And that summer semester of 2021, they stopped doing that. It was, someone dropped the ball. It was me getting into my first statistics class. It was my first math class as a blind guy, which everyone knows math is already a problem for Marines, but it's also notoriously a big issue for blind people, because it's not easy to make accessible. So my college just stopped, and all of a sudden I could no longer independently pursue my education, even though by that point I was living on my own. I was skiing, and I was starting to learn how to whitewater kayak, and was starting to do Brazilian jiu-jitsu by that point, and living entirely on my own. But if you sat this stupid math homework in front of me, I couldn't do it by myself. And that drove me nuts, because that whole driving force me that whole time was the fact that I wanted my independence back, and I had earned it. And then because someone else wasn't doing their job, like all of a sudden I didn't have it. So the college assigned someone to be my eyeballs and read everything to me physically, and also push buttons and do everything for me, basically with me instructing them by my voice. And that it didn't sit right with me. And I made it to the first exam of that course. And that night that we took the first exam, I was like, you know, screw this. I'm going to blow off some steam. I somehow was not aware of the fact, and I guess it was because my mind, or my picture of an alcoholic, was the drunk homeless guy passed out on the corner or on the bus, or whatever, you know, the guy with the DUI. So because I didn't have any of that leading up to my suicide attempt, I was definitely a functional alcoholic. I just didn't see that. So when I ordered alcohol that summer in 2021, it just kicked off. You hear this a lot in recovery. People talk about this, where if you pick back up again, you will, if not instantly, in a very short period, will be back exactly where you were before when you stopped the last time, if not in a worse spot. Right. That's how it was for me. There was no more, it was not functional. It just became all of a sudden, like, if I drank, I was going to black out. And because I was not in a good spot, it took me to dark places. So I actually, within a couple of weeks of that, the drinking was out of control. And I also, because I was so drunk one night, reached a point where it wasn't safe for me to be by myself. So I self-admitted to the VA hospital. And when I came out of that, kind of, my parents had the conversation with me of like, why are you doing this? You know, why are you putting up with this stuff? And I was like, well, you know, I have these goals and I want to do these things and I want to help people. And they were like, yeah, but like, why this way? Like, how come, if this is going to be the barriers, like why this? And so for that also made me curious as to why some things were accessible. Like, how come I could pay my mortgage, but not my electric bill? And how come I could do my psychology homework, but not my math homework, and all these other things? And I started researching what caused those issues. Or a great example is, how come I could be on Zoom tonight, but not StreamYard? And I found out that all of those conversions that were happening and all of those websites that were accessible versus not accessible, it all came down to the code running behind the scenes of whatever piece of software or application, or I guess those are the same things, website or application that I was accessing. Because developers as I was reading about this, developers could take specific steps to make their software accessible. And it's all just about the leaving critical information available for the different access technologies to access, whether that's a screen reader or magnification software or voice control software. And so I decided, because this is a very prevalent issue, like most software is not accessible. So I decided, seeing that was how I could have an impact, that I was going to drop out of college and become part of the solution. So in October, I did drop out of college and I started teaching myself. And that was just me Googling and reading stuff online and figuring out how to do it and writing code and figuring out how this worked and how that would break something and how this didn't, and researching what language I needed to use to be able to get my software on whatever platform I was targeting. And as I was making progress in that, my drinking was also progressing. And so on one hand, I had this full-time job basically of teaching myself how to code. And the other side of it was, I guess I was coding while I was coherent enough to do so. The other side of that was I was drinking like a madman, and it became clear that I needed help. So I tried AA and that didn't work. And I tried outpatient rehab through the VA and that didn't work. And by the time that 2022 rolled around, again, this whole time I was teaching myself how to code, but I accepted I needed to go to a true traditional like inpatient rehab facility. I had my ticket all lined up. I'd paid for my spot. I was waiting to fly out to California to go to this place. And my family got the news that my mom has Huntington's disease, which is a degenerative neurological disease that is terminal. At the time there was actually just a treatment announced like 2 weeks ago that might be able to slow the progression of the disease. But at the time and this is it's just now coming out of its first round of trial. So it has a long way to go to see if there's any real efficacy to it. But seems like they might be starting to make progress, but at the time in 2022, it's entirely untreatable and incurable. And it begins as a kind of a behavioral and then speech and movement disorder. And over time, it's killing your brain tissue. And that's where these issues are coming from. But at the end of the disease, you are reduced to a vegetative state. Like that is the end of the road. If you have it, that is what happens to you. And that is still the case today. But we found out that my mom had it. And the really cool thing about it is there's a 50-50 shot that a parent will pass that on to their child. So I got tested, went to rehab, and near my final week of rehab, found out that I have it too. Wow. So I came back from rehab. My drinking got just, now all of a sudden, an alcoholic just needs an excuse to drink and will always find an excuse. And now I felt like I had a real one. Like the world had robbed me. This was something that was entirely out of my control. And now this was, the hand I'd been dealt, like poor. That's when I got really to the woe is me, poor me. And I can't believe she gave this to me kind of mentality. And at its worst, I was blackout binging for 2 or 3 days straight, recovering for 2 or 3 days. And when I say recovering, I was basically just violently ill for 2 or 3 days. And then I would do it all over again. And I could not make it more than 3 days sober. But again, while I was coherent enough to do so, before I was too drunk to where I couldn't type words accurately or think through the logic that I needed to do, I was coding. And on the 4th of July in 2023, I released my first piece of software. I had started an LLC, and it was just a word puzzle game, but it looked and functioned normally for people without disabilities. Like, you guys wouldn't have known that there was anything special about it. It probably would have looked a little plain because I programmed everything, including the visuals, but it was also accessible to virtually every physical disability. So if someone was totally blind, their screen reader could read everything aloud to them. If they were legally blind, it would automatically infer from their device settings, like, maybe we need to increase the font size and decrease the amount of animations that are used on screen so their eyes can track it better. And maybe they'll use high contrast colors so they can see the differences in these changes that these exaggerated differences in the screen are making. And if someone was totally blind and totally deaf, they could use my software with Braille. I mean, there's these little electronic Braille displays. So like someone could play this iPhone game with Braille. And if you had no arms or you were paralyzed, you could use it with your voice. And it was just all of a sudden people started reaching out to me and telling me that like this, sharing the impact that this stupid little game was having on their lives. Because again, it is, I try and stay away from, again, painting like the poor me side of things, but having a disability like this is life changing. There's a lot of added friction throughout the day to do anything, and especially in the context of software being accessible and not with most things being inaccessible. It's you could be as independent as you want, but if someone puts an inaccessible piece of software in front of you, if you have to try and get new home insurance and you can't do it like that, it's just there's all these little things. So these people are reaching out to me where it's a lot of these people have a lot of doctor's appointments and they're stuck on bus in public transit because they can't drive, but they can't afford an Uber. So a lot of their days are just stuck kind of with all of this added friction in their lives. But all of a sudden they had this little word game where there was no hoops to jump through, and it was a nice little escape from the day. And maybe now I can participate in this. My wife and I are talking about this game together. She's not blind, but I am, and I have this thing that we can talk to. And I know I'm a quadriplegic, but I can play this with my kids, and we talk about it over dinner at night. It was just some sort of, again, that normalcy, just like snowboarding gave to me on that first trip that I had, and it started having an impact on me where I was like, okay, this is doing something. And so I strung together a month of sobriety, and then I fell off the wagon, and then I got 2.5 months sober, and then I fell off the wagon, and people kept reaching out to me. And I actually had my last drink on December 5th of 2023. At the end of that year, that game won 2 Game of the Year awards, specifically because of all the adaptations that my code would make behind the scenes. And things have just kept pushing from there. That was me refining my purpose and refining a sense of identity. And I started writing my book in the beginning of 2024. Now I'm about to start the 4th draft of that. And, started another business where I'm taking all of those approaches that I'd learned, because that game was a proof of concept for me to make sure that I could do everything, including the visuals, even though I've never seen or written a line of code in my life when I could see, but I wanted to make sure I could do it. So I'm trying to have a much larger impact with this new company that I've been working on for the past 1.5 years. And things just keep getting better because I've stayed off the sauce and have kind of started to find my new lane in life.
Wow.
Zach, look, let me ask you this. Hey man, you're a walking example of this didn't happen to me, this happened for me. Were you the type of person that followed through on your dreams and aspirations prior to all of this, or were you like many of us? And I'm raising my hand here, Zach, who say, "Man, what would be a good idea," but then we never act on it. So, I mean, everything you've thought about, you've acted on, man. And I mean that the average person, just because sees a need for something, we talk about it would be great if we had this thing, and you actually went through with it. So who were you before all of this? Were you the guy that says, hey, what would be great if someone invented this? Or were you always the person that said, you know what, one day I'm going to do this thing that's needed? Who were you prior to all of this?
I've never, that was my first time, I guess, making something, but I think I've also never thought about this before. So I'm talking out of my butt right now, but
Okay.
I think if you look back to it, that's
Hmm.
kind of a thread, I guess. I started talking to a recruiter when I was 16 and I wanted to go in the Marines.
Okay.
I did really well for myself in the Marines. And then
Okay.
actually, I don't know, because I was kind of a dirtbag after I got out of the Marines with the drinking. So, but at least from the blindness, since I've been blind, I feel like I kind of
Okay.
have, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what that is. Spite. That I don't know. Yeah.
So now,
You will
Zach,
not lose. I mean, you have a winner's mentality, man. That's how winners think. So
Hmm.
yeah.
so
Sorry,
Zach,
Jack.
I'm sitting there thinking because I know that there's a program. One, you said you're 29 now.
Yes.
Okay, so a lot of this happened when you was like what, 22, 23, 24 years old?
I had just turned 23
23.
when
Okay,
after
come
or
on.
before I shot myself. Yeah.
Right. So 23 and yeah. So you're still, a lot of people look at it still young, still a kid, and you're still
Yeah,
learning.
yeah.
And here you're, making, that move, but at the same time, the things you did afterwards was just, it's very mature. There's a lot of people, they say our brain don't even mature till we're
You're
25 years old.
24,
Here
right?
you're, now with all these different things. But I know that a lot of stuff is like 501 or 504 compliant. That's what we try to get with programs and, where they have an actual, like if you was putting in a new, like the job, my 9 to 5, we put in new programs and we have to make sure that they're 504 compliant, that they, that a person that's colorblind or a person that's visually impaired, a person, so all of those things we got to make sure. So your program, did you know about that or was that something that you was using also, that compliant or accommodations for your program when you put it out?
And
Yeah,
what was the name of the program?
it was called Xanagrams, and I still the company name is Dark Horse Game Studios, and I took it off of the market last year. I gave a big presentation at it was the Game Accessibility Conference in front of like a bunch of AAA developers and stuff like that. But it just with the book and the trying to get this new platform built, I had too much on my plate. So it'll probably I see myself putting it back on the App Store at some point, but right now it's not available anywhere. But on the awareness front, I think doing things for compliance is a minimum
Okay.
approach. That is a I'm going to check the box approach. I was very intentional about doing this in a way that was different, and that's why it won those awards, because it didn't just meet the bare bones side of things. And I get from I think a lot of businesses, and I guess before I go farther with that, what is it that you do outside of the show for work where you guys are having to do this?
We deal with, I'm in the power company, so we deal with a
I'm
lot
a
of programs as far as more like air traffic control for the utility company, if you look at it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So we look at a lot of screens, a lot of different, moving power from one place to another place type thing. So that's my industry that I'm in. So we constantly, and I'm colorblind. So when I
Okay.
went in the military, they said you can do this, this, and this, but you can never be you can never defuse a bomb. So the first they told me I couldn't be a military police because you can't see red and green. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, but when I re-enlisted, they're like, oh, you can be a military police. I'm like, ain't that something? Now it doesn't matter that I can't see red and green, but
Yeah.
and people always constantly say, well, if you colorblind, how you see that and how you see that? Because I went to school and they taught you that that's green and that's red and that's yellow. And I know the lights and I can see that because I was taught just like you were taught. If somebody would have told you the stop sign was blue and all your life you thought it was blue, then it'd have been blue to you. So it's not about being able to see it. But if you put two colors together and say, well, that's aqua this, it's not aqua to me. It's either blue or
Yeah,
it's
the blue.
green. It's
Okay.
not
Okay.
Yeah.
orange. So that's where I'm at with it. But at the same time, the programs that we're using now, we make sure that a person that is colorblind, because a lot of men are colorblind, and we saying okay, and a
Get it
lot of
from
the
our
colors that we
mothers.
are using are red and green. So it's like a red green colorblind. It's hard to maneuver around the system. And now I'm talking to you, I'm like, what was I complaining about? Because you doing all of this maneuvering and it's not colorblind, it's blind. So, and that's why I'm more saying was you thinking in that say, and I appreciate what you're saying. A lot of people it is just checking the box. So for you, you wanted to go deeper. You was trying to not check the boxes, but you was crossing every T's and dotting every I's and everything else that you could do to make sure that this program was for everybody. And that's again, that's a mindset. I know where Walt was coming from. A lot of people would think I'm just working on me. I need a program for myself. You put a program for everybody. And again, would you have done that had you not been in that situation? Because
Definitely
well, you
not.
probably would have been a nurse, so you wouldn't have been doing programming at all. So
Yeah. I I remember like it was when I was in college after I got out of the Marines when I could see still. I saw something, I think it was in like Google Docs. I saw accessibility settings and something that hinted at blind people using computers. And I was like, that's effing stupid. Like that makes no sense. Obviously, blind people can't use computers. So, and I never would have written, I had actually, I think I misspoke earlier because I said I'd never seen a line of code. I'd definitely never written a line of code. I distinctly remember looking up like, oh, how do people make these apps or whatever, and seeing code and being like, screw that, that looks like it sucks. I'm not doing that. So this is
Mm,
not something I ever would have done before.
yeah.
mm.
But
Yeah, when I first went into college, I said I was going to be I was going into computer science, and the 5 hour calculus class broke me off, but the COBOL class really messed me up, and I'm like,
Kobo, yeah.
this is crazy for people to go behind the scenes and is this and that and you couldn't make even one mistake and it was an error all the way across the board and this. So I got out of that, but at the same time, it was a desire. But now you're doing it. You're doing it. So tell me about your books. I'm hearing about the book. So what's the name of the book and what's the book about?
yeah, so the title is still a work in progress because I had initially said I wanted it to be Raw Dog, and then with the subtitle, and the people that I'm working with that are the company that's gonna help me publish this was like, hey, do you know what comes up when you Google Raw Dog? And
I
I
was
was
just
like,
about to ask you.
that's why I did it though. It was my sense of humor. It was Raw Dog, but it was
Oh
also a double
man.
dog being raw with his feelings. So it was supposed to be
Oh
funny,
man.
but they were like, "Yeah, man, you got to redo that." But I'm playing with the formal title names, but the subtitle I think is stuck, and that is A Blind Marine's Journey to Death's Door and Back. So we'll see what the actual title ends up being. I think it'll probably be out in 6 months to a year, but because this new the book kind of wraps up with where I'm at today and being in a better spot, and part of that is with this next phase of trying to have a much bigger impact. Again, that Xanagrams was a proof of concept for me, and though it did really well, I want to have something with a much bigger impact on people's lives, and so that's what I'm trying to do with this. It is in the education space and trying to address some of the issues that I had in college, and that's about as much as I'm willing to talk about it right now. But the book itself really dives into it's all of this. It's a memoir, so I've also skipped over a lot here, right? We have an hour to talk. This is
Mhm.
it's a lot. It really dives into this stuff from nitty gritty wise, and I've got a lot of strong opinions in the mental health space, and specifically on some of the things that we've talked on. Like, we have to realize that the people who, like myself, had agency in our decisions, and that it's not your fault if you get left behind. And hopefully, it's not in no way, shape, or form am I lending advice or saying that I have answers, but I do think exploring it on in such fine detail, and both from the perspective of where I was at, where a lot of these things were going on, and where I am now can save lives. Like I've seen that when I give speeches, there's always someone who comes up to me afterwards and
Yeah.
is like, I've been in a horrible place. A lot of times there's tears involved with this, but it is them coming up and saying like, oh, this just made me realize that I need to go get help. This is, or I wish my now deceased husband would have been able to hear you talk, or because that's all I really think if I had heard someone or read about a story like mine, that as I was approaching that point and as I was doing everything that I could to keep up appearances that I was okay, that this probably would have snapped me out of it.
Right.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
We one of the shows we do, this is the Iron Sharpening Iron show, of course, and it's where we prove that we are stronger together. That's what the part of the motto is. But one of the things we do, we call the Gentleman's Journal. So we get different men up on the stage and we talk about different topics that men face. and mental health, of course, comes up several times, and a lot of it is men don't know how to say I need help. Men will not open up. Men will put those walls up, even when we're talking to each other about the subject of needing help and putting walls up. We still put the walls up. So listening to you talk and saying now, that you needed help or you need help and moving in that direction. But you being honest, and I appreciate that because you were saying that even though you had already shot yourself, you recovered, you didn't put the bottle down. So that didn't change it. It wasn't like that was a turning point for you at all.
Yeah.
So it's like there's still some things that we have to work through and get some assistance for. So before I want to get there, did you ever seek help? And are you willing to talk about it? Did you ever sit down with someone and work through all the things that led you up to the point of pulling that trigger and where you are now? Did you ever seek that type of help?
Yeah, and I'm still very diligent about it. I was kind of forced to early on. I've basically been seeing or been in therapy since they brought me off of life support, and I was coherent enough to have a real conversation about things. But I really, the first time, and I'll be brief in getting to this, but that I'd mentioned being back out on my own in the middle of 2020, or no, yes, in the middle of 2020. And then I bought my first house at the end of that year. I actually reached the worst depression that I've ever been through in that winter rolling into the first several months of 2021. And I think that's because I was sober through all of that. And it was worse than I'd ever felt leading up to my suicide attempt. I think specifically because I was sober, and I was also terrified to speak up because I thought that if I did, that would mean that I would be locked up in a psych ward somewhere. But I did. If I had not, I would have killed myself. I could not understand why I didn't want to be alive, but I did not want to be alive. And that's the thing. Depression is not rational. It's,
Right.
you can't always, you can't put a finger on the pulse of where it's coming from. And you can take action towards addressing it. And for me, that was the first time, and that is absolutely responsible for why I'm still here, not just in getting me through that period in early 2021, but in all this other crap that I've been through. When I did finally speak up to my therapist at that point, we were talking once a week, and that is what we're at now, is we talk once a week. But when I told her that, fully believing that she was going to call the police on me, she was just there for me. And we went from talking once a week to every day, and sometimes multiple times a day. And it showed me that specifically then, that this lesson that no matter how bad things seem, it is escapable. That feeling that you have is inside of you, that this depression is inescapable, is a lie. It is. And I fully understand that. I've been there, and I felt that way when I spoke up to her, but getting through that showed me that is not true. But you have to, coming back to what we talked about earlier, you have to make the choice to help yourself and know that it is going to be extremely uncomfortable. It is going to be probably drawn out. It's going to be painful. It's going to be difficult, but it can and it will get better. Like I used to not even be able to talk about stuff with my ex-wife, much less the suicide attempt. I would get sweaty, I would shut down, and it's been a lot of work. Like, it's someone probably, like we're talking about, someone is probably hearing this right now that is recognizing a lot of parallels to their own story.
Yeah.
It can get better. That is how, that's how I got through the alcoholism. I was trying to work through that the whole time. That was how I have Huntington's disease. If nothing changes medically, I will eventually be a vegetable. That's not very easy to deal with. I still do therapy, and it is active work, and it's not, sometimes it's just maintenance stuff, but sometimes it is still hard work, and you owe it to yourself and those around you to do that work.
Wow. Yeah.
So,
Go ahead,
what,
Walt.
Jack?
No, go ahead.
Oh, so I heard someone say something today, and it just kind of struck me. It's like, wow. They said that death walks beside us daily, but we just don't know when it's going to overtake us. So the person, after they said that, they were saying it to say, we all out of here at some point, right? We all checking out of here at some point. No one knows the time of day, right? Big Jack, and I'm sure you were more experienced and well versed in the Bible more than me, Jack. You can, but no one knows when. So what I see, this whole process has been sort of cathartic for you. You are using this opportunity, and you are probably living your life more than an average person. We've had guests on this show before, and I just never forget what Kirk said. He said that all we leave out of here with is the love we give, the love we gave, and the experiences that we had. And I'm paraphrasing, but it seems like you have really, for lack of a better word, figured this thing out. Because life is to be lived and enjoyed, and you are really living your life. And the reason you're inspirational to people who have situations going on and people who don't, you're a mirror, man. I mean, just looking at you are a mirror to me, is like how much I have not done, how much I take. I'm talking about me, well, personally, how much I have not done, how much I take for granted, how much many times I've said I'll get to it. And if you're living in the present, tomorrow never comes, because if you just stay present, tomorrow will never get here because it'll always be tomorrow, right? But if you stay in the present, it just seems like, to me, what I'm getting from this is like you are living your life in the present. You are staying present with where you are, who you are, and what you have the ability to do. And man, the average person hasn't even touched, and I'm talking about myself here, the our full potential. Haven't even reached our full potential. I haven't even reached my full potential. I mean, I thought I was doing some stuff, man, but I got to take a hard look at myself and like realize how much I haven't done and how much I don't do and how much I take for granted what I am doing and how much more I can do with what I have. Let me say that. So thank you for that, man. Zach, I got to tell you, bro, you have an incredible story. You have an incredible life. And the one thing that comes to mind to me, and please, I'm not even gonna say forgive me for this because I know you can get this reference. It seems like you've been around, Jack.
It does. It does. So,
You've been around, Jack. So yeah,
Zach, I'm gonna throw
so
this at you. I'm gonna throw this at you. How bad? I mean, really, how bad do you piss people off when they see you doing things? Because I'm imagining you out on the mat, jujitsu with someone who can see and got all of everything else going on, and you kicking their butt. So do they take it easy on you? You think they take it easy on you because
No, no, they
no,
don't.
no.
I got, the last tournament I competed in was back in April, and I got thrown so hard in that tournament. And again, because I'm competing against people without disabilities. I've never competed against someone else with any sort of disability. I got thrown so hard and slammed that my coach, instead of, continuing to coach me and try and tell me how to get out from under this guy, he yelled, "He can see again." It made me laugh. I'm getting strangled by this freaking guy after I got the freaking launch. Yeah, people don't take it easy, and I don't want them to.
right,
That's the cool
right,
part about it, is even though that guy whooped me, I'm like, well, you beat a blind guy. But when I beat you and it's in front of your wife and
right.
kids,
Yeah.
you just got your ass beat by a blind guy.
That's what I
I
was
don't
sitting
know.
there thinking. Hey, I thought you were gonna say your coach was gonna do the Rocky, like stay down, stay
Oh
down.
no. No. It was like, he
Nah,
can see again. And I giggled, and then the dude on top of me giggled a little bit. Like, I don't know. It was cartoonish, but it was funny.
yeah. So is it
Mm-mm-mm.
do you miss the fact that I know you've been through it and you can experience it all, but do you not say that someone's woe is me, but do you miss the fact that I see rock climbing, but you haven't seen or in Colorado there's some great mountains out there. You got the Rockies and all of that, but like can you just imagine what it's like, or if you've seen it before? Did I guess it's a better question. Did rock climbing come after you were blind, or was it before?
I had done it a little bit in high school, and obviously I'd done rappelling and stuff like that, and like hasty rappelling while I was in the Marines, but I've really gotten more into it since I'd never been true outdoor rock climbing until I was blind, but I do, I was curious about that earlier too, when you were talking about your dad. Like it's when I have stuff like that, I'm very thankful that I was able to see for 23 years of my life because it
Right.
brings back, and I have a very vivid imagination where I can picture that stuff,
Yeah.
even if it's entirely off. Like I don't, it is something where I do get these pictures in my mind. And so I think it's really cool, especially with very tangible experiences like that.
Because I mean, I've been to Colorado, been to Pikes Peak, and been all the way up there. You can't even breathe because the air's so thin,
Yeah.
and I can imagine, because I've seen that. So now, if you're saying you're climbing the rock or climbing the mountain, it's like you're imagining this is Pikes Peak. I'm going up Pikes Peak, and I guess nobody will be pulling your wool, but like you're not even 2 feet off the ground. You can't tell, but no, yeah,
Yeah. It doesn't matter to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 No,
So
that's crazy.
it's
So
cool.
kayaking, so that would be the Colorado River, whitewater rafting in the Colorado, or is that
Yeah, it's whitewater kayaking. So I'm in my own boat. I'm not tethered to anyone. It's the same way when I ski. We use radios because I can't follow sound to save my life with the 1 year. But I can if it's quiet. But obviously on a river or when you're skiing, it's not
Right.
very quiet. So we use radios, and I've done some on the Colorado, some on the Arkansas River. I was just out in Washington D.C. I guess we didn't really do any whitewater, but we kayaked on
Oh
the
wow.
Potomac a little bit. But yeah, so I've gotten to do. I've done some up in is that Yellowstone?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the first time I actually did whitewater was up there. So I've gotten to do a little bit here and there, and hopefully we'll continue to do more as the years progress here because it took us a long time to figure out a system for whitewater that worked for me with the guiding thing because other blind people just follow someone calling out verbal sounds, and since I can't figure that out, like it took us a couple of years to figure out the system.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're in
So
the Washington D.C. area, so
yeah.
you're saying you was in our neighborhood, so when you was up here, so yeah, that's pretty cool.
And
And
I'm in DC proper, and
Okay.
I do know the kayaking in like up around Great Falls is extremely dangerous. And you saying you were doing this by yourself
No, I'm in my own kayak, right?
in your
So
own
no
kayak? I mean,
one's
but still, I mean, that's like wow,
just
because
summons my
it's
eyeballs. Yeah.
wow. So you come to DC often? You have friends, relatives, you just hanging out? What?
I was out there. The organization that I do the whitewater kayaking with specifically is called Team River Runner, and they're
Mm-hmm.
headquartered out of somewhere in Maryland. So
Okay.
they do a biathlon every year. That's a big
Okay.
annual fundraiser, and so I was just out there for that. Just
Wow.
this weekend I was. So
that sounds like
Okay.
something around the Harpers Ferry area. Harpers Ferry, right there where West Virginia, Maryland, Virginia meets.
that might be I know we were by somewhere where nearby or across the river or something from where Trump plays golf sometimes because they saw security guys out
Oh
there when
yeah.
we were out there.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
was over in
Yeah.
that area. There's a canoe club out there somewhere where they do
Okay.
this race every year.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know where you at?
Okay, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Man, that's
So,
cool. That's
So
cool.
I'm gonna ask you one more question, Zach, and I do appreciate you being here and being a guest on the show. And I know you got a lot. So one thing I tell anybody that's a guest on our show that you're now a Hall of Famer on the Iron Sharpening Iron show. Hopefully you'll
Okay.
come back because you got, like I said, you got a lot of lemons that you didn't get a chance to share with us. So
Yeah.
not that we want to hear about all your lemons, but just the lemonade because you definitely have taken some bad and turned it into good, and it good not just for you but for a lot of other people. So that is huge, and that's why you winning awards. And I'm rooting for your book to be a success. And I'm without a doubt that your spirit will say it's going to be a success. But now I'm that person with that gun in his hand, thinking about there's woe is me or nothing's going to happen good for me. Nothing, everything's going bad. I got the bottle in one hand, I got the gun in one hand. What would you say to me? If you had an opportunity, what would you say to me to this, don't do it type thing? What would you say?
Gonna reiterate some of what I touched on earlier, but it's the fact there are an incredible number of people and organizations out there who want to help you. They just have to know that you need help. And that it is coming back to that idea that that feeling that you have of it being inescapable is a lie. It is a normal way to feel that way. Obviously, that is how I got to that place. That is how so many other people get to that place, but that is not true. But to get out of that seemingly inescapable place, for it to be escapable, you have to tell someone, and it doesn't have to be a professional. I realize not everyone has access to that. I'm very fortunate that I have my veterans benefits, but should be someone that you trust. And if you don't have that, call 988. That is the suicide hotline. There is also a veterans crisis line through that number. I've called that number before. I was not locked up. I got connected with services that I needed. They were there for me. It's okay to need help. It's not okay to not do something about it.
Right.
And that doing something about it is speaking up.
So based off your answer, I just lied. So I got another question for you.
Okay.
And I have one before we go too.
Yeah,
So go ahead.
okay. So we got time too. As long as you got time, we got time.
Yeah, I'm good, man.
Okay. So my thing is, I'm curious because of what you just said to me, but how's your relationship with your roommate? Because you said you had talked to him just before you went in there. So what are y'all at now, or do you still have a relationship, or because I can only imagine if I was that friend or that roommate. I don't even know if y'all was friends, and you say y'all was roommates, and I saw you just before you walked in, and so it's if you don't mind sharing, how's
Yeah.
that relationship?
Well, and he's the one who found me. So he was in the kitchen. Our apartment was set up so that it was my room and bathroom on one side, living room and kitchen in the middle, and his room and bathroom on the other side. And so we were talking out in the kitchen. He went back into his room and I went back into mine. And so he heard the gun go off and then found me and had to deal with. I woke up while he was on the phone with 911 and was asking him for help in water. And he had to deal with all that and then get investigated as if he had been the one who shot me. So I actually just reached back out to him and apologized to him here in the last couple months. So for 6 years ish, we didn't have a relationship. He was there. I think he came and saw me in the hospital once or twice, and I held a lot of resentment that he disappeared after that. In the time, being in the midst of it, not realizing what effect my actions had on him, it took some time to realize that. But then I also felt bad about reaching out, so I just didn't. And when I did finally reach out to him a couple months ago, it was very interesting to hear he had not reached out because he thought that I would be mad at him for him having saved my life.
Oh wow.
So, I think the error is entirely cleared there, and I apologized to him. He said I didn't owe him any apology. I think I definitely did, but yeah, it's not like we're close now, but we're on good terms. So
No, and Walt, I know you got a question. I'm going to let you definitely ask it, but
I
when
appreciate
you
that.
said that, it brought me back. I used to be a correction officer, and I had a lot of people that had life. And I remember doing my rounds, and they were like, they was like, "Hey, Big Jack, if you come by and if I'm not responding, leave me alone."
yeah,
And for you to say that your roommate was thinking that, because it's like some people don't want to be. When you said, I'm thinking Forrest Gump, Lieutenant Dan, like, why are you
just leave me.
leave me
Yeah,
alone?
yeah,
But I got you. So yeah, that's deep. You just don't realize, as you're talking, for that, and that's why I was wondering how's the roommate thing, because I can only imagine being in the same house with a person, having a conversation with a person, and then they walk off, and it's like, what did I miss? And we talked about that, the cues that people miss, and to be that close to you. Yeah, he found you, but he found you because I could hear the gun go off. It wasn't like, I walked in the house and it was like that. It was just the
yeah.
fact that I was just talking to you. And so thank you for sharing, and thank you for being open with that part of the conversation. Yes, Walt, what do you have, sir?
Oh, on a much lighter note, but this is a very important question, and I don't even know if you've given it any thought. But I gotta ask you right here on the Iron Sharpening Iron show with Big Jack and Walt Talks. You know, we know you have the book coming out, but who plays Zach Tidwell in the movie?
Morgan Freeman.
Morgan
I mean,
Oh
we look a
this
lot
guy,
alike. So
this guy here, man, this guy.
Okay, Morgan Freeman. All right. So
uh,
Morgan Freeman, if you out there
Oh
listening, Zach
man,
Tidwell said he needs the voice of
oh,
God, the voice of God to be
oh,
him.
oh, man, there's something about a man and a bottle of suds. Hey, Zach, man, thank you so much, man. This has been quite an experience for me, man. I appreciate your, just getting on here with Big Jack and myself. And hey, man, you answered all the questions, and even to the point where you said you were glad that he asked you some of the questions. So, and you were walking proof that hey, man, you haven't lost your sense of humor. You still live in reality, and thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that
well,
because
thank you
I'm
guys,
sure
man.
that's not. I'm sure that's you get people who just don't see that all the time, and then you make people take a hard look at themselves, man.
100%.
You make
Yeah.
people take a hard. It's like looking in the mirror, man. It's like now, why haven't I done this,
Yeah.
that, or the other?
What's my excuse?
What's my excuse? I mean, you kind of messed the game up with that, Zach. So I want you to know you kind of messed the game up when it comes to excuses about why you haven't done stuff in life, man. So thank you for that, man.
Really.
Make me revisit some things. I think I may go ahead and I always wanted to be a '70s actor with an afro, but I don't have any hair on my head,
Put it
so
Go get
that's.
plugs.
That's it. That's it. That's it. Get them plugs. He probably already tried
Hey,
that.
bro. No, you see, exactly. You see, that's a shot. The
Yeah,
guy
yeah.
takes shots all day long, man. He takes shots.
Look, hey
It's
Zach,
all
we're
right.
gonna ask you, and we're gonna close the show. We're gonna ask you just to stay back with us as we once it's over and go, behind stage with us. For everybody that's out there, we thank you for tuning in for the Iron Shopping Iron Show. We had Zach Tidwell with us, amazing person, amazing story, and can't wait for the book to come out. And when it comes out, hopefully Zach will come back on the stage with us and let us know that the book is out. But while you're out there, we ask you to continue to watch the Iron Shopping Iron Show, and we got all the spin-offs that's going out there. So tune in. We're changing the name a little bit, so you'll start seeing a little bit different because it's the Iron Shopping Iron Universe, and because we're adding so many different things to our brand. So with all that being said, we ask you to stay encouraged. Thank you, Zach, for that. And stay sharp, and we'll see you next time on the Iron Shopping Iron Show. All right, and have a good night.
Not
Thank
everyone.